Hello, everyone. Welcome to Money Hour Radio, a show where we try to help you grow your money, pay less taxes, have a beautiful retirement. I am one of your co-hosts, Ben Barzideh. As usual, I have my trusted, esteemed co-host, Matt Nadeau here.
Hey, everybody.
We are both founding partners and wealth managers at Barzideh and Nadeau Wealth Management, a comprehensive financial planning firm located locally right here in Barrington, serving the greater Chicagoland area. And we are fiduciaries. And as an independent family-owned firm, we truly have the freedom to focus solely on your interests, not some corporations or those shady private equity companies.
And as always, we want to take a moment, say hi to all of our clients. We know you're listening out there. Thank you for listening. We, of course, appreciate the trust you place in each of us. And, we love every one of you. And, Ben, before we get on to our topics today, I want to say congratulations to your wife. I know she just graduated with her master's, doing some great work out there. She just did a trip to Africa, doing some World Health Organization type stuff. So congratulations to Andrea.
She's definitely my better half, Yeah. I'll write some checks for those type of things, but you're not gonna see me in Africa, on the boots on the ground type of thing.
That's right. Well, congratulations. All right. So now what are we going to talk about? So first, we want to talk about something that I'm sure many of you have gotten in the mail. You've gotten people trying to pitch you on these gimmicky annuity products out there. So we're going to tell you what to watch out for, why they're so gimmicky, and why we here at Barzideh and Nadeau Wealth Management typically do not recommend them. And then at the next segment, we're going to actually talk about something called a revocable living trust. A lot of you could benefit from them. We're going to talk about what those benefits are, and you're not going to want to miss that.
What a good show we're going to have. But before we start, we encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel on moneyhourradio.com, where you can view this week's episode along with our previous ones. You can also subscribe to our weekly economic newsletter. It's called the 5-Minute Market Brief. It's informative, succinct. You get a really good idea of what we're seeing, what we're analyzing that week. And then lastly, while you're on bnwealth.com, please like and subscribe to our social media pages on Facebook and Instagram. All right, let's talk about those gimmicky annuity pitches, Matt.
Man, we're not even giving them a chance right off the bat, gimmicky. But it really is like almost every week goes by for us where we don't find ourselves answering a question with a client or a prospective client about how do these annuities work? And basically what that means is no one that we speak with has any idea of how these things work. And they're extremely confusing. And then, of course, my cynical side steps out and it feels like, hey, wait a minute. I don't really trust some of these insurance companies. What if they're doing it on purpose? And I really think if people really understood them, we'd see a lot less people who actually invest in them.
No doubt. And as you can see, we're not very fond of them. Kind of a scam. So we generally do not recommend annuities. In our view, they're very gimmicky. They're packaged insurance products, usually recommended by insurance agents or advisors that came from an insurance background. And not to be too elitist or anything, but we kind of call them the low totem pole advisors, the bottom feeders that don't really know a lot.
Come on, Ben. Don't make them feel any worse.
I'm just keeping it real. They also pay a big, fat, huge commission too, right up front. But we're sure that's not the factor, right? And the recommendation, of course, just coincidence.
Just a little coincidence. Now, when we're talking about annuities, there's actually multiple types. So you've got something called a straight fixed annuity, and we've got variable annuities. And the worst of them all, but unfortunately what we would see as the most commonly sold annuity, and also probably the most abused annuity, is something called a fixed equity index annuity, which in our opinion is just this glorified CD. And a typical pitch you'll hear goes something like this. You're going to be told, hey, you're going to make money regardless of what the stock market does. It's safe. It's guaranteed. You can't lose money. And I think we've all learned in life, Ben, if something sounds too good to be true, God, probably is.
No doubt. And then it gets even better. Many times there's an upfront bonus that is also meant to entice the investor into buying one. And of course, to get the bonus, it has to either vest, so you have to keep your money in the contract for a long time to get it, or sometimes the bonus goes into your annuitization value, which is something no one does. Annuitization is where you give the insurance company your money in return for a specified amount of income over the rest of your life. And most people never live long enough to get their money back. And once you die, the rest of the money is kept by the insurance company instead of going to your heirs. That's why they call it annuicide.
Oh, geez. Yeah, it's bad. A lot of people don't even realize at some point you might be even forced to annuitize. So it can be terrible. And these tricks that they put in place, bonuses, all these features, it's really designed to have you leave your money in that product for a long time. And why? So they can make money with your money. And unfortunately, what happens is the money that you invest grows at a snail's pace, and they lock your money up for quite a long time. I mean, we've seen it where these surrender periods are 10 or 15 years. And if that's not bad enough, then on top of that, they add draconian penalties if you do need to or want to get out early. And again, we've seen this where it's as high as 10 or 15% penalty to pull it out. So by the time you realize it's a mistake, it's pretty much too late and now you're stuck. And we jokingly say it's like marrying a supermodel. It's great for the first year. Then all of a sudden your problems start. It doesn't look quite as good as it used to when you got up close to it. And then if you want to get out of this marriage, gosh, it costs you a lot of money to get out. And the reason on an annuity is because when we talked about, they're going to give that big fat commission up front. And so the salesman's going to get sometimes 6-8% right up front. So think about that. If you invest $1 million into an index annuity, that advisor is just basically going to pocket 60, 80 grand all at once. It's like, say what?
It's insane. And so you can see why the internet is filled with cases of fraud and abuse with these annuities, almost always targeted towards retirees and seniors who fall for the bells and whistles and the smooth talking salesman. And since the equity index annuity is basically like a glorified CD, there's really nothing to even manage with it. As the investor, you get a rate of interest each year, just like a CD, but it's calculated by some gimmicky formula that no one really understands. So it's like if the stock market goes up, an index, you get a portion of it, but it's always capped at a certain percentage rate, so you don't get all of it. And if the stock market goes down, you get a small fixed rate that year, like 1%, for instance. But the reality is that the formula is designed in such a way that you average out about 2 to 3% growth each year for the life of the contract after fees, no matter how good or how bad the market does over that long period of time.
Yeah, and think about it. They're just going to run on cruise control. And since there's no investment portfolio to manage, it's going to free up the time for that person who sold them to market and try to find some more unfortunate suckers, people, I'm sorry, to sell them to. And there's little, if any, actually compliance oversight over them by the SEC or FINRA because it's technically classified as a fixed annuity, an insurance product. So the only license you need to sell these equity indexed annuities is an insurance license. So you can take like a quick week-long course, which is pretty easy, pass your insurance exam, bam, now you're an advisor. You can see why they're so abused. And honestly, Ben, they're not all terrible people. A lot of them are actually genuine. They just don't know any better. That's how they've been trained. And you think about it, if the only tool you have is a hammer, then every solution to a problem involves a nail.
And there's other annuities. There's variable annuities, which are not as bad in our view. They have pros and cons. They're very expensive, usually about 2 to 4% a year in fees, much higher than a typical portfolio. In certain unique circumstances, we may recommend variable annuities for tax or estate planning purposes, but it's seldom. And the ones we recommend are the ones that are low fee and are designed to be managed actively by RIAs like us that know what we're doing and understand dynamic portfolio management. But the reality is we feel we have a much better solution and approach for striking the right balance and opportunity for upside market growth and downside protection. If the market starts crashing, we are talking about our flagship way, which is our Advance and Protect.
Yeah, and that's actually, again, if you listen, we monitor our investments every single day. The market's doing well, we're invested, and there's no upside caps like an annuity. And then we actually protect by actually selling out of the stock market when our research warns that the risk of a potential market crash is elevated. So don't settle for these gimmicky annuities. If you're out there and you have an annuity or you're being approached about an annuity and you're confused about it, reach out to us. We'll help analyze that contract for you free of charge. We'll let you know how it works, the pros, the cons, and then you can make a more informed decision and weigh that against other opportunities like something like our investment philosophy. So if you want to learn more, you want to take advantage of us reviewing that annuity contract, reach out at bnwealth.com or call our office at 847-780-2980. All right, don't go away. When we come back, we're going to talk about the benefits of a revocable living trust. Welcome back. Thank you for tuning in. This is Money Hour Radio, a show where we try and help you grow your money, pay less taxes, and have a beautiful retirement. And I'm one of your hosts, Matt Nadeau. I have with me my co-host. He's here every week with me. It's like I can't get rid of him, Ben Barzideh.
Hello, everyone.
All right. We're both founding partners. We're wealth managers at Barzideh and Nadeau Wealth Management. We're a local, independent, and comprehensive financial planning firm. We're located right here in Barrington, and we're serving the greater Chicagoland area.
And before we move on, we'd like to ask you to please subscribe to our YouTube channel on moneyhourradio.com, where you can view this week's recording along with our previous ones. We have a fantastic weekly economic commentary. It's called the 5-Minute Market Brief. You can sign up for that at bnwealth.com. And while you're on BN Wealth, you should follow us online, social media pages on Facebook and Instagram. All right, so let's talk about the benefits of a revocable living trust. And listen, we love talking about trusts on our show. And few things to us can be as sexy as a well-designed estate tax saving strategy. That's what nerds we are.
That's a long week if we're saying that, Ben.
A revocable living trust is one of the most powerful and effective tools used in estate planning because it allows individuals to manage and distribute their assets while maintaining flexibility and control during their lifetime. And unlike a will, which only takes effect after your death, a revocable living trust becomes active as soon as it's created and funded. And this type of trust offers several important benefits, including avoiding probate, which is a big one, maintaining privacy, and preparing for potential incapacity.
Yeah, and for most people out there, this is typically the main type of trust that the majority of you will utilize. So if you're out there listening, most likely this is going to be the type of trust that could benefit you. So let's explain. With a revocable living trust, you're going to have an attorney draft this trust, and you will be what's considered the grantor. Right? And then you're going to name yourself as the trustee, typically, which is lawyer language for you're the boss of your stuff. And then what you'll do is retitle some of your different assets so that they're actually titled in this revocable trust that you create. So what this arrangement allows is you as the grantor to continue to use, to control the assets, just the same as you did before the trust was created. And because this trust is what we called revocable, the grantor can change it, add, remove assets, make any of those changes into the trust at any time, as long as you're still mentally competent. And then upon the grantor's death or incapacity, what happens is a successor trustee will take over the management of the trust, and then we'll start to distribute the assets according to those instructions which you wrote into the trust document.
Which means be careful planning for your successor trustee. You don't want to put your irresponsible cousin down or something like that, One major advantage of a revocable living trust is that it helps avoid probate. This is such a big deal. So probate is the legal process in which a court validates a will and oversees the distribution of property after death. And probate is basically like the DMV of the legal system. It's slow, frustrating, and no one wants to be there, okay? And this process can be expensive, time consuming, and very stressful, unfortunately, for family and your heirs. And you owe it to them not to put them through this. So it's kind of like the court's way of saying, we know you're grieving, but hey, let's also do some paperwork for 9 months to a year and a half.
I mean, if you love courts and lawyers and paying fees, sounds great. So listen, assets held in a revocable living trust get to bypass probate altogether because basically the trust technically owns the assets, not the individual. And as a result, beneficiaries typically will receive the property more quickly, and we typically see with much fewer legal expenses. That'll mean you don't have to go through the probate courts, no dramatic courtroom scenes, no relatives fake crying while secretly measuring your TV.
Yeah.
Gotta love those relatives. All
Yeah.
right. But then there's also another important benefit, and Ben, you touched on this, is privacy. Wills, if you just have a will, all of a sudden, once it gets in the probate court and all of that, it becomes part of the public record. Means anybody can look it up, anybody can access the information. And in contrast, if you have a revocable living trust, all of that can remain private.
That's right, private, meaning your nosy neighbor Karen won't be able to see what assets you had and who inherited them, right?
Oh, Karen.
So in addition, a revocable living trust can provide something called continuity if the grantor becomes incapacitated. So since the successor trustee can immediately step in to manage the assets, there may be no need for a court-ordered or a court-appointed guardian or conservator. If you don't have that ahead of time chosen, the courts will do it for you. This feature is especially valuable for elderly individuals or those with health concerns. And then revocable living trusts are very useful in several other situations as well. So we talked about sheltering from probate. Well, individuals who own property in multiple states may benefit because the trust can help avoid separate probate proceedings in each state. Most people don't know that, but yeah, if you have property, which a lot of people, we're very close to Wisconsin where we're at right here. You could have a cabin there and some property here. Well, guess what? Each one of those is technically subject to its own probate process, very time consuming. So trusts can also be useful for people with large estates, blended families, or minor children. For example, a trust can specify how children receive inherited assets instead of giving them a large sum of money all at once. So if you have a child who's not as responsible, you can put some handcuffs on it. And then likewise, people who want to ensure smooth financial management during illness or disability often choose a revocable living trust as one of the big parts of their estate plan.
Yeah, you're really thinking with these revocable trusts, saving money with taxes, saving money with probate, and control features. There's a lot of benefits for people.
And speaking of control, Matt, I know you know this, but one of very popular handcuffs to put in trusts that we've seen over the last few years is divorce protection for your kids. Here's what I mean. We're dealing with a 50% divorce rate these days. So what happens if our kids, they're married, we die, they inherit our assets, and then they get divorced? Well, you wouldn't want an ex-son-in-law or a daughter-in-law walking off with half of your money that was intended for your kids and grandkids. So it's a way to keep your assets in your bloodlines. You can put some verbiage in a trust to make sure that that restriction is in there.
Yeah. And if you, of course, just one other caveat, if you have like kids who are in a litigious type of profession, doctors, lawyers, potentially subject to lawsuits, there's ways to protect them from that too. So they're really powerful. Despite all these advantages, there are, of course, not everything's all rainbows. There's some pitfalls. So a drawback right up front is the cost. Right? You're going to create a trust. It's generally more expensive than just drafting a simple will because it requires more legal work, more ongoing management. And then another thing is you actually have to fund the trust. It doesn't help to create one if you don't do anything about it. And this is where we actually see a lot of people fail. They go out, they pay a lot of money for a fancy trust, and then just don't take the next step to fund it. So creating the trust without transferring assets into it, it's like buying a gym membership and never going in. Oh, geez. I'm
know.
in trouble with that.
That was a low blow, man.
I know. Now, listen, if assets don't get transferred correctly, then you went through that problem, all that process for nothing because it could still go through probate. So be careful. And then again, people start hearing trust. You think billionaires and loopholes and offshore islands. But remember, I'm talking about that these are important for regular people. And a standard revocable living trust actually doesn't usually provide those special income tax benefits while you're alive. They do provide protection from creditors during the grantor's lifetime, or they do not provide protection from creditors during the grantor's lifetime because you're still alive as the grantor and you still control it. And they do not reduce estate taxes in most cases. It's not what they're intended to do. So you got to be careful on some of those fronts.
No doubt. But in conclusion, a revocable living trust can be a very effective way to ensure that assets are managed and distributed according to one person's wishes while reducing the stress for loved ones after death. And they can save your heirs a lot of money and time that would otherwise be wasted by dealing with the court system. So remember, while death may be inevitable, family drama is at least it's at least partially preventable, right?
I guess it depends on the family.
No doubt. And we were talking about fees earlier and costs and everything like that. So nowadays, and we have some very qualified estate planning attorneys we work with that we know do a really good job. Some of them done our own personal estate plans and trusts that we have, so we can refer people to them. But the general cost these days for like a joint trust or revocable living trust for a husband and wife is somewhere around $4,000 to $5,000, I would say.
Yeah, depends. Everybody has some unique situations, but at least that amount. Yep.
But it's very valuable if it serves the purpose that it does for a lot of people. So as with any financial planning, investing, tax, or estate strategy, it's essential to work with qualified people, professionals who understand these concepts and tailor them to your unique situation. And usually a good financial planner, someone like us, is the quarterback of the plan. We help coordinate with your other professionals like your attorney or CPA. And if you need a good financial planner, someone who puts your interests first, well, hey, look at us. We would be honored if you gave an opportunity to talk with you. If our investment and financial planning philosophy resonates with you, then please reach out to us and schedule a complimentary consultation. All right, we are going to be out of time. Reach out to us at 847-780-2980 or bnwealth.com. We're out of time. God bless you. We will see you next week.
Take care, everyone.